The sky of the jungle world cracked open without warning. Giant ships broke through the clouds, loud and angry. Fire rained down on the green world below. Trees burned, rivers steamed, and alien cries filled the air. The humans had arrived, not to speak, not to trade, but to conquer. She watched from a rocky hill, her green hair flowing in the wind. She was a warrior of her people, proud and feared. Her armor was light, made from the bones of beasts and steel from fallen stars. Her eyes glowed like emeralds. Her name was Jera, and today, she thought she would die. Jera did not fear death. She feared the humans. The stories had spread fast, cold hearts, hot weapons, no mercy. They didn't see her kind as people. They saw them as resources, tools, sometimes even shields. She crouched in the leaves, breathing quietly. Her squad was gone. Only she remained. Her leg was bleeding, but she didn't stop. The sounds of boots and blasters came closer. Then she saw one. A human soldier stepped through the smoke, tall, strong, bare-chested under his armored vest. His weapon pointed low, not at her. His eyes scanned the trees, not seeing her yet. His face was not angry. He looked tired. Jera grabbed her knife. This was it. If he saw her, he would use her like the others did. Tie her to a tree. Use her as bait. She would not let that happen. She leaped out with a cry, ready to strike. But he caught her wrist before the blade touched him. His grip was strong but not cruel. He didn't fight back. He looked into her eyes and said something soft. "You're bleeding." Jera froze. Her ears twitched. Was that concern? She pushed against him, but he let go. She stumbled back. He raised his hand slowly, showing he had no plan to hurt her. "I don't want to fight," he said again, slower this time. Jera had never heard a human speak gently. She didn't believe him. She raised her blade again. But he stepped back, lowering his weapon fully. Then he did something strange. He dropped his gun. She looked at it. Then back at him. "My name's Kyle," he said. She didn't answer. She didn't trust him. But her leg throbbed harder now. She couldn't run. She couldn't hide. And this man, this human, was still not attacking. Jera collapsed onto one knee. Pain shot up her thigh. She hissed but didn't cry out. Kyle took a slow step forward. "Let me help," he said. Jera stared at him like he was a ghost. No human offered help. They only took. Why was he different? Behind them, explosions roared. The war was still going. But here, in this small part of the jungle, something new had started. A human didn't pull the trigger. A warrior didn't strike. Two enemies paused. Jera let her knife fall. Not because she trusted him, but because she was tired of hate. Kale walked closer and knelt beside her. He tore a piece of cloth from his shirt and pressed it gently to her wound. For a moment, silence grew between them. He didn't ask questions. He didn't try to chain her. He just helped. And for the first time in her life, Jera didn't feel like prey. She felt seen. Jera sat with her back against a tree, watching the human named Kyle clean the blood from her leg. His hands moved, carefully. Not once did he grab her wrong or make her feel small. She waited for a trick, but it didn't come. His bag had strange tools, metal boxes that buzzed and hissed. He opened one and placed a patch over her wound. The pain faded fast. She didn't want to admit it, but his medicine was better than hers. "You're not like the others," she said finally. Kale looked up. His face was calm. "I didn't come to hurt anyone," he answered. "I came because I was told we were protecting the weak. But this..." He looked around at the burning jungle. "This isn't what I signed up for." Jera narrowed her eyes. "Your people destroyed my village." "I know," he whispered. For a moment, only the sound of fire crackling in the distance filled the air. Then a loud blast shook the ground. Nearby, Kale stood quickly and pulled Jera up. "We need to move, they'll find us." Jera wanted to push him away, to crawl into the roots and vanish. but her body was weak and her heart confused. This human wasn't using her as a shield. He was protecting her. They moved through the jungle, quiet and fast. Kyle walked ahead, clearing branches and checking for patrols. Jera limped behind, still alert. Her warrior spirit warned her not to trust him. But her instincts, those ancient parts of her that understood truth, told her something different. She saw the way Kale reacted to danger. He didn't hide behind her. He didn't treat her like a tool. He scanned the shadows, always stepping between her and the threat. When a drone passed overhead, Kale pressed her gently against a tree and covered her with his body, not in force but in care. His breath was warm on her shoulder. For the first time in days, she felt safe. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, whispering into the dark. Kyle didn't move. "Because I saw you bleed, and I remembered you're not my enemy. You're someone who could have killed me but didn't." Jera didn't answer. She wasn't ready to believe it, but something inside her cracked a little. A wall she had kept strong for years started to tremble. After hours of moving, they found a small cave behind a waterfall, safe, hidden, quiet. Kale helped her sit, then lit a tiny heat source to keep them warm. He sat near the edge of the cave, keeping watch. Jera stared at his back. His shoulders were broad, marked with scars. Not all from war. Some looked old. From before this fight. He was a warrior too, shaped by pain. Maybe that's why he didn't speak much. She finally said, "If your leaders find out you helped me, what will they do?" He looked back over his shoulder. Court-martial, prison, maybe worse. Then why risk it? Kale gave a half-smile. "Because I'd rather be punished for saving someone than praised for burning another village." Jera felt her breath catch. In that moment, the war outside felt smaller. Not gone, not forgotten, but less important than the fire that had just started to grow between two lost souls hiding in a cave. The rain poured over the jungle for hours. Thick drops beat against the cave mouth like drums of warning. Jera sat by the warm light Kyle had built, her eyes never leaving him. He stayed close to the entrance, scanning the trees even in the downpour. He hadn't slept, not even for a minute. Jera didn't understand him. He could have left her. He could have used her as a hostage. Instead, he gave her his food, shared his warmth, and guarded her like a loyal shield. Not once did he touch her without reason. Not once did he treat her as weak. She wanted to ask questions, but the words felt heavy. So she simply whispered, "You are not like the stories." Kale turned, his eyes dark and tired. "Neither are you." They sat in silence again. The war was far but never gone. Distant explosions rumbled under the storm like thunder. Somewhere out there, his soldiers and her warriors were killing each other. Kale pulled something from his bag, a flat, glowing panel. Jera had seen it before, human tech used for tracking. She leaned closer, suddenly alert. "Are they near?" "No," he replied. "I disabled the tracker. They can't find us." She blinked. "Why?" He didn't answer immediately. His fingers hovered over the screen, then he shut it off completely. "I'm tired of being a weapon," he said. Jera looked at him closely now. His jaw was tight, his knuckles white, his muscles strong, but not with pride, with pain. "You don't belong in their army," she said. Kale nodded once. "And you don't belong in a cage." That sentence hit her like an arrow. Jera had seen her kind chained, beaten, taken as prisoners or worse. She had escaped that fate so far, but not without losing much. For the first time, she asked his question back. "What do you see when you look at me?" Kyle turned to face her, the firelight dancing in his eyes. He didn't speak quickly. He didn't use soft words to win her over. He simply said the truth. "I see someone strong, someone who should be leading, not hiding." Jera didn't move, but her breath grew shallow. She wanted to argue. She wanted to stay silent, but instead her voice came out softer than she expected. "My people would kill me if they saw me trusting you." Kale smiled sadly. "Mine would do worse." She stood slowly, testing her leg. It still hurt, but she could walk now. She stepped toward him and looked up into his eyes. I don't understand you, Kyle, but I know one thing. He waited. You could have used me. You didn't. His gaze didn't shift. You trusted me first, when you dropped your knife. I didn't do it for you, she said sharply. I did it because I wanted to see if a human could care. And now? Jera paused. Then she answered in a low, steady voice. Now I wonder if a human could stay. Kyle looked at her, long and deep, no words this time, just a quiet agreement in his eyes. For the first time in days, the world around them felt still. No running, no fighting, just two enemies who weren't enemies anymore. And as the storm calmed, so did something inside them. But outside, the jungle hadn't forgotten them, and neither had the war. The next morning, the jungle was silent. Too silent. Jera woke first. Her eyes opened to soft morning light leaking through the cave's edge. The storm had passed, leaving behind steam and thick mist. The ground smelled of wet soil and ash. Her leg still ached, but she could stand without pain now. Kale was still asleep, finally resting after 2 nights of protecting her. His arm was under his head, chest rising slow and steady. She watched him for a moment, her thoughts turning. He was a soldier, her enemy, a human. But now, he was more than that. He was the first person, human or alien, who looked at her not as a weapon or a threat or an object. He looked at her like she mattered. She stepped outside the cave and breathed in the warm, damp air. The jungle looked fresh, like it had been reborn overnight. Yet the silence wasn't peace. It was danger. The animals had fled. Something else was nearby. She rushed back into the cave and gently shook Kale's shoulder. He sat up fast, his hand reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Quiet, she whispered. We're not alone. Kyle grabbed his gear and moved with her to the trees. They crouched behind thick roots and listened. Voices. Human voices. Jera's eyes narrowed. Patrol. Kyle's face went pale. They must have tracked the shuttle crash. They're sweeping the forest. They'll find us, she said. He nodded. Unless we move. Now. They ran. Not through the open paths, but under vines and across rocks. Jera knew the forest better than any soldier. She led the way now, her trust in Kale turning into something deeper, a quiet partnership. But it didn't last. Blaster fire cracked through the trees. Kyle pushed Jera down behind a log and covered her with his body again. This time, she didn't. Resist, go, she hissed. They'll kill you for helping me. He looked down at her, angry. Then let them try. More footsteps, shouts. They were being surrounded. Jera's heart pounded. Kale stood and held up his hands. Stop. Friendly. A squad of humans aimed their rifles at him. Behind them was a tall officer in black armor. His name tag read Riker. Riker stepped forward, frowning. Kale, you've been missing for 2 days. And what is that? Jera stood slowly beside Kale. Her blade was in her hand, but she didn't lift it yet. She's not a threat, Kale said calmly. She's injured. I helped her. You what? Riker's face twisted. You broke protocol. You helped the enemy. That's treason. She saved my life too, Kale said. She could have killed me. She didn't. Riker lifted his gun. Stand aside. Kale didn't move. No. Jera felt her body tense. Her people would never believe a human stood in front of her like this. Shielding her. Choosing her. Riker stepped closer. If you won't stand down, soldier, I will put you down. Jera's fingers tightened around her blade. She stepped beside Kale, back to back. It was no longer about survival. It was loyalty. To each other. To the truth. They stood, 2 against many, in the heart of a burning jungle. And they didn't take 1 step back. The standoff was tight. 10 soldiers, 1 officer, and 2 figures refusing to bow. Kale's heart pounded, but his hands didn't shake. He stood firm between Riker's squad and Jera. His voice was steady, even as danger pressed in from every side. You want her? You'll have to shoot through me. Jera had never seen a human fight for someone else's life, especially someone not from his species. Her kind had always been treated as things, tools, prisoners. But Kale stood like she was royalty. Riker's face grew darker. You're out of line, soldier. I already crossed that line when I chose to protect her. Jera slowly raised her blade. She didn't speak. Her actions were clear. She would fight beside him, even if it cost her everything. Riker gave a cold laugh. 2 traitors in one morning. Fine. He raised his hand to signal the squad. Before he could give the order, something unexpected happened. One of the soldiers lowered his gun, another followed, then a third. They looked at Kale, then at Jera, and saw something different. Not a threat. Not a monster. But a warrior standing beside a man who saw her as equal. Riker roared, "What are you doing?" A younger soldier, barely more than a boy, stepped forward. "Sir, she's not attacking us. Neither is Kale. This isn't right." Riker turned and struck the boy across the face. "You obey orders." Kyle moved forward, pulling Jera with him. "We don't need your army. We'll make our own." Riker aimed his weapon again, but this time he was alone. The rest of the squad stepped back, their weapons down. Not siding with Kale, but choosing not to fire. Jera felt a strange warmth in her chest. Hope, not just for herself, but for her people. "We leave now," Kale said. Riker shouted curses as they disappeared into the trees. Hours passed. They didn't speak much. The jungle seemed calmer now, as if it had watched the moment and allowed them to pass. Jera walked beside Kale, no longer limping. Her leg was healing. But something else inside her was growing stronger too. That night, they found a quiet clearing where giant glowing flowers lit the ground like stars. Kale sat near a small fire, sharpening a piece of wood. Jera sat across from him, her gaze softer now. "You didn't have to protect me," she said. "I know," he replied. "But I wanted to, even when it could have killed you." Kale looked up. That would have been easier than living with the regret of walking away. Jera didn't respond. She just stared at him for a long time. Then she asked, "What now?" He stood and tossed the wood into the fire. "We can't go back. Not to them. Not to your people. Not yet." She nodded. "Then we make our own path." Kyle walked over and sat beside her. For a moment they listened to the soft hum of the jungle night. "I don't belong to anyone anymore," she said. "Neither do I," Kyle whispered. She looked into his eyes. "Then maybe we belong to each other." No answer came. Just a quiet moment. Honest. Pure. New. And in the wild heart of a broken world, something sacred began. Not war. Not fear. But the start of something neither of them had ever known. A bond that neither shield nor blade could break. The jungle began to feel less like a battlefield and more like a home. Jera and Kale traveled deeper into the wildlands, far beyond the reach of human patrols or alien scouts. These lands were untouched, sacred to her people, but long abandoned during the war. Now, with no sides left to serve, they walked not as enemies, but as something new. They hunted together, shared food, shared silence. Sometimes they laughed. And sometimes, when the wind was still and the fire soft, they just sat close and said nothing. But the world outside was not done with them. One morning, Jera woke before sunrise. She walked to the edge of a cliff where the mist rolled over green valleys. The sky turned orange above her. She didn't hear Kale behind her, but she felt him. "Could you ever go back?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "Even if I did, they wouldn't accept me," he nodded. "Same for me." She turned to him. "Then where do we belong?" Kyle took her hand gently. "Here, with each other." It was the first time he had touched her like that. Out of choice, not necessity. And she didn't pull away. Her fingers closed around his, strong and warm. But peace never lasts long in a world shaped by war. That same afternoon, they heard the whirring of machines in the trees. Jera's eyes narrowed. Drones. Cale grabbed his pack. They're scanning. He hacked into one of their signal points and quickly read the feed. They're not just looking for me anymore, he said. They marked you as a traitor too. Jera wasn't surprised. So now we're targets, together. Kyle smiled with no fear. I've been called worse. They packed what little they had and moved fast. Jera knew a hidden mountain pass. It would take them beyond the borders, beyond anyone's war. But as they climbed, Cale paused. Jera, if we keep running, we'll never stop. She looked at him. What do you want? He met her eyes. To build something. A place for people like us, not soldiers, not slaves, just free. Her heart beat faster. He wasn't talking about hiding anymore. He was talking about a future. A new tribe, she asked. A new home, he said. Jera didn't answer right away. She looked at the valley below, then back at him. We'll be hunted, she warned. Let them come, Kyle replied. We know how to survive. That night they reached the mountain ridge. Stars blinked above them like silent witnesses. Jera built a fire while Cale dug into his bag. He pulled out something strange. A small silver object. I've been carrying this since before the mission, he said. Didn't know why. Now I do. Jera leaned closer. It was a simple ring, human-made, shaped like a loop of braided metal. She frowned. What is it? Kyle's voice dropped. It's a promise. He held it out. Not with force, not with pressure, but with quiet strength. You don't belong to anyone, Jera, and I won't claim you like that. But if you'd stand beside me, not as shield, not as prisoner, but as partner, I'd be proud. Jera stared at the ring. She had never imagined this. Not from a human. Not from anyone. But her heart had already answered before her lips moved. I will. They stood under the stars, hand in hand. Not as enemies. Not even as allies. But as two souls choosing each other in a world that never gave them the choice before. The morning light touched their skin as they stood on the mountain ridge, their hands still joined. The promise between them had no ceremony, no crowd, no leaders. Just two hearts and a quiet fire between stars. Jera wore the ring on a leather, string around her neck. She didn't understand human customs fully, but she understood symbols. And this one meant she had chosen him, not for safety, not for war, for him, for Kyle. Everything was clearer now. He had left behind orders, ranks, and rules, but in doing so, he had found something stronger, someone worth building a new life with. They started clearing a path deeper into the mountain forest. Jera showed him places only her kind knew, springs with clean water, trees that bore glowing fruit, caves lined with crystals that could store heat. They built with their hands. A small shelter, a food pit, and walls of stone not to keep others out but to say, this is ours. But the world had not forgotten them. 3 days later, while Kyle was setting traps for wild beasts, he found a blinking red light under a bush. A tracker drone, small, silent, hidden. His face turned cold. He rushed back to Jera, who was washing fruit in the stream. They found us, he said. Her body tensed. How long? Hours. Maybe less. Jera didn't panic. She stood tall and fierce, the warrior rising again. We can run. No, Kyle said. Not this time. He opened his old communication device and sent a signal, not to the army, but to the open frequencies. A message, a warning, a call. He stood before the camera and spoke clear. My name is Cale Marin. I am no longer a soldier of the Terran Command. I chose peace. I chose truth. And I chose to stand beside someone your wars call enemy. She is not my enemy. She is my future. Jera stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder. "We will not run," Kale continued. "But we are not alone. There are others like us, and we will rise not with guns but with courage." He ended the message and sent it out to every frequency. Jera looked at him. "That will make you a target for everyone." "Maybe," Kale said. "But maybe it will give others hope." That night they prepared, not for flight, but for defense. Jera sharpened her blade. Kale repaired his old rifle. They set traps. They made signals. They dug trenches around the shelter. When the sky darkened, the sound of engines filled the air. Dropships. 3 of them. Jera stood at the doorway, her blade ready. Kale took her hand one last time. "If we fall together." "No," Jera whispered, locking eyes with him. "We rise together." Outside lights cut through the trees. Boots hit the dirt. Weapons clicked into place. But inside the shelter, there was no fear. Just firelight and 2 people who had found each other in the heart of a broken world. The enemy thought they would find weakness. But what they found was something stronger than weapons. A bond forged in war, and ready to face whatever came next. The forest shook as the dropships landed. Jera gripped her blade tight. Kale stood beside her, rifle ready. In front of them was a handmade shelter, behind them the edge of a cliff. There was no place left to run. But they weren't running anymore. Lights flashed in the trees. Dozens of soldiers marched forward. Human and alien alike. Mercenaries, bounty hunters, even deserters from both sides. The message Kale had sent had spread farther than they expected. But not all had come to destroy. Some had come to see if it was true. 2 figures, enemy-born. But side by side, a human and an alien warrior standing together. Not as tools of war, but as something more. Kale stepped forward, calm. "You don't need to fight us." A captain in metal armor raised a hand. "You broke ranks. You protected a threat." Jera stepped beside him. "I am not a threat. I am a protector. And I choose him," the crowd muttered. Some raised weapons, others lowered them slowly, unsure. A voice came from the back. A woman. A soldier. "I saw the message. I thought it was a trick. But you're really here." She dropped her rifle. Another followed. Then another. Kale and Jera watched as half the gathered fighters dropped their arms, not because they agreed, but because they saw something different. A choice. Not made in politics, but in love. Suddenly a sharp sound cracked the air. A shot. It wasn't aimed at Kale. It wasn't aimed at Jera. It was aimed at the ones who had lowered their weapons. One of the hostile mercenaries broke the fragile peace. The jungle erupted in chaos. Kyle dove, pulling Jera behind cover. She rolled beside him, slicing the vines with her blade as soldiers scrambled. But those who had chosen peace now stood up to defend it. It wasn't Kale or Jera alone now. It was everyone who believed in something more. The fight was fierce. Jera moved like lightning, protecting those behind her. Kale fired only when needed. His aim sharp, his focus clear. Hours passed. Then silence returned. The jungle floor was scorched. Some were wounded, some had fallen. But Kale and Jera stood, and so did the others. No more war cries, no more orders, only breath, and a feeling in the air that something had changed. Days later, the shelter had become a camp, then a camp became a village. Warriors came not to fight but to build, outcasts, runaways, believers, humans, aliens, all living together. Kale stood at the center, shirt dusty, eyes tired. Jera walked beside him, tall and proud. They didn't call themselves leaders, but they were, not because of power, because of choice. And one night, under the soft light of twin moons, Kale took her hand again. "Do you still wear the ring?" he asked. Jera smiled, touching the leather string around her neck. "I never took it off." He stepped closer. "Then let this be our vow, not of marriage, not of tribe, but of truth." She nodded. "I am yours, not to own, but to stand beside. They kissed, not like lovers in a story, but like survivors who finally found peace. The fire behind them crackled. Children laughed nearby. Voices in many languages filled the air, and the story of the human who refused to use her as a shield, but chose her as a bride spread across stars, not just as legend, but as proof that love, even in war, can change everything.